Do you think that Trump is Bill Clinton's type? Everything we know a lot about Bill Clinton's sex life. Do you really think large blonde men, that's Bubba's type? I don't think so.
There's no video of President Trump sucking a ding-dong. I never sucked any ding-dongs. But I'll tell you, if they were going to blackmail me to start World War III about one, I'd say, hey, I sucked a golf ball through a freaking garden hose.
Jeffrey Epstein was a Mossad agent.
And they had an email. They would at least leak that email.
First thing I do is I say, would you look at this? You know what I mean?
Yeah, sure.
You're a conspiracy theorist, Michael.
One of us, we accept that one of us. Google Gobble, one of us, we accept that one of us.
Jake Day here. If you're going to watch one video today, this is the one to watch. Buckle up, because this one's quite a ride. Don't forget to like the video, and let's get started.
This is what it really comes down to, Piers. You know, there have been lots of interesting things said on this panel. I'm very curious as to what the Epstein infrastructure represented. There have been many suggestions over the years, reportedly from Alex Acosta, the former U.S. attorney who was Trump's labor nominee when he apparently suggested that Epstein belonged to intelligence, the potential connections to Israel, the connection to the UK, obviously, with Prince Andrew, whatever. You know, obviously, it's extremely interesting. I'd like to know more about it. We probably never will know much more about it, but I'm interested in it. Obviously, we want justice for the victims. Obviously, we want bad guys to be held to account. All of that is true, but it's simpler. The reason that President Trump initially in 2015 called for scrutiny into Epstein is because he doesn't have anything serious to hide. Yes, I'm sure he turns up in the files. Yes, I'm sure there's some embarrassing stuff in there, but he's got nothing serious to hide. I've got that from pretty highly placed liberal sources too, as you've mentioned as well, Piers. Then the reason he flipped on it is because he realized rightly that focusing on the Epstein files doesn't really get him anything politically. Action from the topics he wants to be talking about, which are crime in Democrat cities and immigration and the economy or whatever else. So I think it was a basic political calculation to say, if we're talking about Epstein, it doesn't really help us. Now, for that very same reason, I think the White House just miscalculated. They thought that not talking about Epstein was going to make the issue go away so they could focus on more important things. Well, actually, it just put even more focus on the Epstein files. So now Trump comes out, he says, all right, whatever, I'm going to lose this vote. The party's in rebellion. Okay, fine, release the files. But I think it's much more practical.
Okay, fine, release the files. You mean that thing that you said you would do? Okay, fine, I'll do
than
it.
what everyone's suggesting.
Well, the only thing I would say about your timeline, I'm not saying you're wrong, but if you go back in the last few months, certainly the first months of the year when he got elected, there was this enormous push by his people to say, we're going to release all the files. We're going to be totally transparent. They came on this show and we're giving it the full, we're going to get it all out there, blah, blah, blah. And then a weird series of events happened. Elon Musk falls out with Donald Trump and suddenly tweets out of nowhere, posts out of nowhere on his X platform. Breaking news, Trump's in the Epstein files. That's why he doesn't want to release them. Enjoy your night, Donald, something like that. And within a few days, the whole investigation was shut down. The whole idea of releasing them was shut down. And, I remember looking at all that thinking, that is very odd. What is going on
That is very odd.
here, right? What has Elon Musk seen or heard? And the fact he set off this bonfire with this one post, which he then deleted later, but it triggered a series of events at the White House that was a screeching U-turn on their previous attitude and tone towards these files. You don't have to be a conspiracy theorist, Michael, to think it's all a bit weird.
I don't want to be a conspiracy theorist either, but perhaps there's a reason the Daily Wire has hardly covered the Epstein files or pushed back against what the official narrative has been. Might be a reason. I'm guessing it starts with an M.
Releasing the Epstein files was a very good line during the campaign, and I think people cared about it. Don't forget, it was the conservatives back in 2014, 2015 who were calling attention to Epstein. That was initially considered a Democrat scandal. But then, as you see, even just from Elon's tweet, the very fact that Trump appears in the files, because he's known Epstein for a very long time, the very fact of that became a major distraction. It was politically damaging to the White House. And then you just got to think at a basic political calculation, what's the best that comes out of releasing the files? Is it a real knockdown for the Democrats? Is there really going to be justice? Some of what's in the files is actually going to be retracted. Like you saw Virginia Giuffre retract an accusation against Alan Dershowitz and come out and say that she never saw Trump do anything improper. So it's this muddy, weird, ugly event. Even the real stuff with Epstein, the potential connections to intelligence or whatever, it's just so, I don't know, murky and obscure. I don't think there's a major political win.
I really hope Michael is pretending to be this naive. The easy political win is representing and showing and proving that you are the most transparent administration this country has ever known, as you have stated in the past. Yeah, that's a huge political win to be transparent. It's a huge political win to follow through on the promises that you make.
Even the real stuff with Epstein, the potential connections to intelligence or whatever, it's just so, I don't know, murky and obscure. I don't think there's a major political win.
Yeah, no, this is way simpler. There's nothing murky about this at all. There's two factors here. One is Donald Trump's embarrassment, whether he did something criminal or not. And on that, let's stay there for a second. We're all ignoring the elephant in the room. There's an email that says that Donald Trump blew Bubba. Now, some people think Bubba's Bill Clinton. Some people think it's a horse. Some people think whatever. Now, I didn't write the email. In fact, when I first saw it online, I didn't even believe it. And
Well,
let me
explain to you. Believe it now.
Hang on. Just to explain to viewers who might be at the moment shouting at their screen, thinking, "What?" So this is a message reported as originating from Mark Epstein, Jeffrey Epstein's brother. He is the one who sends this to Jeffrey Epstein. He has since publicly denied that it was referring to Bill Clinton, but has offered no clarification as to who it was referring to. Clinton, of course, had that nickname, amongst others. I mean, it could just be a joke between brothers. It could just be a slur. Or it could be something else, I guess. I just find it very, very hard.
I have a question, Piers.
What's that?
I have a question for Cenk. I have a question for Cenk. Cenk, do you really believe, forget about Trump for a second, do you think that Trump is Bill Clinton's type? Everything, we know a lot about Bill Clinton's sex life. Do you really think large blonde men, that's Bubba's type? I don't think so.
Yeah. So, guys, this is a classic distraction. That's funny, but I don't know if Bubba's Bill Clinton. I don't care if it's Bill Clinton. I'd be surprised if it was Bill Clinton. But, I don't know that he actually blew a guy. I don't know. But Mark Epstein denied that it was Bill Clinton, but didn't deny that Donald Trump actually gave a blowjob. So it's not me.
Come on,
and
none
if
of
you
us,
say, hey,
I don't
look,
think
it's Epstein's brother, I don't trust him.
Even you
but
believe
hold on. Let me finish the thought. Hold on. No. And then Jeffrey Epstein says, well, the Russians would love to get their hands on that picture or something like along those lines. So wait, is that a joke? That doesn't sound like a joke. So look, I'm not saying he definitely did it, but is it possible that Donald Trump was embarrassed that would come out? Of course. Okay, but that's only half the equation and the less important half of the equation. The main reason why it never came out, both under Trump and under Democratic administrations, is because it obviously involves intelligence agencies. This is not complicated. And Officer Tatum says, oh, okay, it might be the CIA. I agree. Maybe it's the CIA and Mossad working together. But there's no question. You could look at the 4-part series on Drop Site News. The former Prime Minister of Israel's emails have been released, and Epstein and him constantly are coordinating about how to push America into a war. And they're talking about only the benefit of Israel. They never talk about the benefit of America. And Epstein is using almost all of his power to help Israel. That's now an established fact, and that's way more important than Bubba, right? And yet, that's another giant elephant in the room, and mainstream media is like, oh, no, it involves Israel, so we can't talk about it. Well, that explains everything. That explains why both parties have been covering this up, because it involves potentially our government or a beloved special allies government.
It's all we want to talk about. Oh, it's because Trump's in the files. Oh, it's because somebody on the left is in the files. It has nothing to do with that. It has to do with the fact that the Epstein files include information that are condemning to Mossad. Israeli Prime Minister Ehud Barak suggests Epstein played a significant role in brokering deals for Israeli intelligence. These reports detail Epstein's involvement in them. He brokered a security agreement between Israel and Mongolia. He set up back channel between Israel and Russia during the Syrian civil war, aimed at pressuring the Obama administration and advancing Israeli interests, advising Barak on dealing with Mossad, at one point referring to the head of the agency by the nickname Number 1, facilitating the sale of surveillance technology to Corte d'Ivoire. Connections to Ehud Barak.
Ehud.
former PM was a close contact of Epstein, visiting his Manhattan residence dozens of times between 2013 and 2017. A veteran Israeli intelligence officer and aide to Barack, Yanni Koren, also stayed at Epstein's apartment for weeks at a time. Former Israeli intelligence officer Ari claimed Epstein and his associate Ghislaine Maxwell ran a honey trap operation for Mossad to blackmail global elites. Stephen Hoffenberg, Epstein's former business partner, claimed Epstein admitted to Mossad ties. Former U.S. Attorney Alexander Acosta, who oversaw Epstein's 2008 plea deal, reportedly told White House interviewers he was told Epstein belonged to intelligence and to leave it alone. It's the implications of what was going on with an intelligence agency that wasn't our own, that was controlling global elites and our leaders. That's what we care about. I want you to keep in mind, American intelligence agencies, the FBI or the CIA, the right has been going heavily against, especially with Trump attacking those organizations. So we've had free reign to create any conspiracy we want about the FBI and the CIA, and there was no problem with that. And now that we are talking about Mossad, another intelligence agency, I'm going to guess that Tatum is going to say that that is anti-Semitic, or that we shouldn't be going after them, and that they're all fine and they're all good. But he never made that same defense for the CIA. Let's see what happens.
Officer Tatum, look, I don't know the answer to this. But I would say, having read a lot about Jeffrey Epstein now and the circles he mixed in and the circles he brought to his home and to his island, when you put it all together, it is absolutely not beyond the realms of fantasy. In fact, I would say it heads more to a high likelihood that he was up to his neck in it with intelligence agencies of some kind, maybe myriad intelligence agencies. It would absolutely go with his persona and the type of people he was getting around his table on a sort of almost daily basis. So I certainly wouldn't want to bet the bank on him having no attachment to Mossad or CIA or anybody else.
Yeah, I wouldn't say that either. I have no idea what exactly is involved in this, and nobody does.
Are you sure about that?
Oh, would you look at this?
Yeah, well.
Would you look at that?
Yeah, there's a few more blemishes on the car.
Oh my gosh, just look at it.
I mean, it's a very complicated situation. Nobody understands the totality of this.
Right.
There's still a lot of room.
Because he was arrested under Donald Trump's first term, if I'm not mistaken. They had the information there. It was we had the White House and everything. We could have divulged whatever needs to be divulged, and people are going to argue if they don't get the results they want that it was deleted. It was somehow some nefarious thing that went on. Then the Clintons, and then Joe Biden had it forever, and they did nothing. They didn't even mention anything any impropriety about Donald Trump. You would think if Donald Trump had blown some guy and they had an email, they would at least leak that email.
First thing I do is I say, would you look at this? You know what I mean?
Yeah, sure.
They wouldn't mention nothing else. They would leak an email about Donald Trump. At least
Possibly, but you could argue that that would be homophobic.
Before the election, it can look bad, so he'll never get into office, and they can continue to cover this up forever in perpetuity.
You know why I think they didn't?
Unless Israel ordered them not to.
Well,
so
I
mean,
don't know.
it's just a misspelling.
It might be. Hang on. It might be simpler than that.
It's crazy to me.
It might be simpler than that.
See here, if the CIA told him not to, or if the FBI told him not to, Officer Tatum would have had no motivation to correct Cenk.
My gut feeling.
Biden listened to every single thing Israel said.
Cenk, my gut feeling about this, Officer Tatum, is the reason actually in the end neither side has felt compelled to release all these files is I suspect when we see them all that both sides have a lot of blood on their hands, not literally, but in terms of embarrassing revelation, perhaps evidence of alleged criminality and so on. I suspect you'll see this is a proper bipartisan scandal. I only base that on the type of guests that Epstein was having all the time. They were from every part of American high society, Democrat, Republican, you name it, they were trotting down there. A lot of the pressure on Trump has not just come from Democrats, but has actually come from within the MAGA base, who were enraged about this and wanted these files released and have been completely incredulous as to why suddenly they weren't being.
Well, I mean, there's a lot there, but I guess what I said last week on our podcast, his move is to say he wants full disclosure because that gives him coverage with his base. And no matter what comes out of the disclosed files, Trump will have a defense that his base would believe. I predict he'll find something to distract people from this over the ensuing months.
But I really do think if all they do is kick this can down the road, it's going to get a bigger problem for the Trump administration.
I totally agree, and I almost agree with my friend Mr. Scaramucci over there. I think he's just getting it backwards. I think that the entire calculation here was that the Epstein files are a major distraction. And so what has come to be the case, I think indisputably, is that not releasing the files was a distraction. There are going to be files, however, that will not come out. And even if they did release all the files, there will always be people saying, well, there were more emails, there were files that were destroyed. Of course that's the case. The Epstein scandal is really, really bizarre. And so I kind of think of it like the JFK files. You know, in 1992, we were supposed to get those JFK files, and the government just like doesn't release them all. So either Epstein is who the elites say that he is, which is a weird, rich sex freak, but no connections to any political questions, or he was the super duper triple spy for every government agency in the world. He's James Bond and Jason Bourne, in which case we're never going to find out the full story. Either we know what we know, we know everything, or we're never going to get the whole story. And so it will serve as a distraction. There's no question about it. The only question is, how do you minimize that distraction?
Either he's a triple spy or he's a weird freak. Who do you think he's been hanging out with? No, he's just a perverted rich dude. Where did he get his money, Michael? So he is the super spy for every government agency in the world. Don't you think it's important to get those files then?
Jason Bourne, in which case we're never going to find out the full story. Either we know.
You're a conspiracy theorist, Michael. You've just now said that the government lies.
One of us, we accept that one of us. Google gobble, one of us, we accept that one of us.
What we know, we know everything, or we're never going to get the whole story. And so it will serve as a distraction. There's no question about it. The only question is, how do you minimize that distraction? And I agree. I hate to say it, but I think I agree with everyone here that Trump has to release the files. It helps to reunify the party a little bit. And by the way, if the Democrats win the midterms, which those elections 2 weeks ago seemed to suggest, they're going to subpoena, they're going to have investigations ad nauseum. So better to get ahead of it and not let them put their spin on it.
Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like the video, share with your friends, and we'll see you in the next one. Peace.